Recording.
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Today is Thursday, November 21st, and the time is 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bendy?
Here.
Commissioner Bowe? Here. Commissioner Halting?
Here.
Commissioner Leduc?
Present.
Commissioner Matza?
Here.
Commissioner Grau?
Here. Would anyone like to amend, add, or delete an item to the current agenda? No one ever does. Is there any public comment? No. I move to approve the minutes from the October 29th, 2024 special board meeting and the minutes from the November 7th, 2024 regular board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, report of park officials. I have nothing to report. The attorney. All right, our executive director.
Thank you. For a couple updates, the election all packets were submitted earlier this week. We received four, three returning commissioners running for re-election and one new one. In regards to South Park, progress has been made. The project is running along smoothly. MWD has approved all the recent changes. We are still waiting inspections for the stormwater. And then the shelter plumbing has been put in, and the shelter will start being erected beginning tentatively next week and will last roughly around 3 weeks. We're on hold right now with paving regarding the parking lot based on weather, as today was 2 to 4 inches of snow in various places. So we're on a little hold right there. We're optimistic that we might be able to squeeze it in. If not, the parking lot will move into next year. And then the fencing has been put up around the racket court, so that's your pickleball and your tennis courts. And then also they've been starting the path around the baseball field. Oakton's going great. The goal is to have everything boarded up and the the roofing up to utilize our natural gas for heat in the winter. That's on target to be done by the middle of December. The old mechanical room was demolished, so that building that was there before is gone. So progress is being made, and we're happy with what we have seen. And then at the board meeting of December 19th, we'll be reviewing the closed session minutes. So if you would like to schedule a time with Mary Beth, please reach out to Mary Beth and schedule time to review the minutes to see if any need to be released. And then finally, I just want to wish all staff, commissioners, and their family a happy Thanksgiving, since Turkey Day is 7 days away. So thank you.
You too, John. Any questions?
That South Park parking lot is really in rough shape. If you don't get it this year, you're going to have something in there.
Terry and I have been talking about looking at the schedule regarding whether if we don't get it replaced, we're going to have to do some patchwork to making sure that there's safe passageway through the winter. So that's already on our radar.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Manassar Articles of Agreement. I move to approve the revised Articles of Agreement with Maine Niles Association of Special Recreation as presented, and to authorize the board president and secretary to execute and deliver such agreement.
Second.
Any discussion?
In front of you, including the packet, is the revised Manassar Articles of Agreement. The couple changes that were made was just clarifying who was on the board. Before it said Parks and Recreation Director. Clearly now it says Executive Director. Steps for who would be the alternative for the executive director of each corresponding association, and also the timing for when dues are due, or payments submitted, is 2 weeks earlier to help assist with cash flow. And I have talked that over with Karen as well, so it lines up with our budget projection as being in the same quarter. So no issues on our end there.
Questions? Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
All right, FY 2025 budget update. So to date, staff has received questions from the board and have responded all answers to questions. Our goal was to have an approved budget at the December 19th meeting. So to be on target with that, we're looking for final direction of the budget tonight in regards to the overall proposed fee changes, the proposed staff structure, the operating budget, and the capital projects for 2025 as well. We're looking to get a general consensus for us to keep moving forward. On December 5th, we will approve the tax levy ordinance, but the overall budget is not looking to be approved until December 19th, and we're just looking to get consensus from the board where we stand with proposed fees, staffing structure, the operating budget, and the overall capital budget. Open up for comments and thoughts.
Have we, Commissioner Leduc and I were talking, and I've been thinking about it more. And I know we have staffing increases, but the pool pass thing is still that we keep on increasing. We're increasing Beyond the Bell, we're increasing camp, and I just feel like that's a burden on families that we keep on increasing it. I know we have staffing increases, but I did notice in the very helpful information that was provided in the packet this week on the end of year numbers for pool, that it looked like our non-resident numbers were pretty robust, that came up. So I was just wondering if we could make some sort of compromise, and like, I know we need to increase, but maybe we could make it 3% or something a little bit less, just because we've been increasing it every year. So I really appreciate the numbers, and I really appreciate all the work that went into it.
Did you read about the Twilight Pass?
Yes, I did. But I
think that's a nice compromise.
Oh, I didn't. I missed if that's going to be for this year. I thought we were looking into it.
We're looking into it in April. Could speak a little bit more about it in hopes to have something for this upcoming pool season. So we've already started the dialogue to see if that would be feasible this year. And I know that Superintendent Armour and Aquatics Manager Williams is working on that for this upcoming year. So that was one way we were looking to kind of offset some additional pool passes. And then we could also do work with the marketing department and promote the early bird rates, since they are lower than what the regular rates were for 2024. Again, these are all still proposed.
Yeah.
We haven't changed anything. The only addition we did is the addition of potentially doing the Twilight Pass.
I don't know how other people feel about it. I feel like I'm like, I bring this up every year, but I don't know how. I know how. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'm completely in agreement with Commissioner Holting, and as far as I'm concerned, like, this is the hill I will die on, that I am not okay with the 7% increase, particularly not for residents. And I think that we're going to talk compromise, I want more than just the Twilight Pass. I mean, especially since there was a big situation last year that was talked about quite robustly in various online Facebook groups about the issue with, like the smaller wading pool, kiddie pool area being closed at Centennial, which is difficult for, families when they come with children of like various age ranges. And since we know that that's always going to be a problem towards the end of the year, like, it's just to continually jack up the pool prices at that level is ridiculous. And I'm like, yes, I understand costs do have to go up, but I am objecting strenuously to the degree to which they are being raised, particularly since, the community has given us a lot. They gave us a really big referendum. We're willing to take, these tax increases, but at the end of the day, I'm not okay with families being nickeled and dimed at every opportunity. And I think there's some point where we have to say, like, okay, we hear you. We understand your complaints. We know it's tough supporting a family in this day and age because everything is so expensive. Like, we're going to at least not completely jack up the pool rates for our residents.
I think the other thing too is maybe the pool pass would be something that might have a less of an impact on the budget, say, versus like not accepting the increases for camp or Beyond the Bell. Like, pool pass is a smaller concession to make, so.
I also agree that the pool passes are higher. I worry, though, with the current budget being a deficit budget and not knowing exactly what that 7% gets us, like on an actual dollar amount. It will generate potentially $13,000, whatever that number is, right? If we want to be true to this budget, if we're going to subsidize the 13,000, which I agree with, I just don't know where we're going to get that 13,000 from, right? So are we going to ask staff to go, okay, we want this subsidized, you get 4 of us to agree, and we'll do it. All right, what do we cut? What did we have that meeting with and had staff agree to? Is it going to be dropping, hiring one of Superintendent Wolf's employees? Is it going to be jacking camp rates to 10%? I mean, so there has to be a balance, right? So I think the staff did a very good job with the thing, and they probably struggled with raising the pool passes, but with this being the last year with minimum wage and most of those lifeguards making that minimum wage, they got the compression they got to keep up with. I would like to know the exact dollar amount before I would
Sure.
be on your side of this. And then also, what in that budget can we use to offset this? If it's really that big of a need for the families to have this stuff. So, and I will mention one thing. So in the pool pass increases for next year, I believe that if you do the early bird pass, it's actually cheaper than it was the previous year. So if families are very concerned about the increase in prices, which I do agree with. I mean, I hear it a lot, right? I've been encouraging them. I'm like, listen, it's cheaper this year coming up than it was last year.
Then
So,
the regular rate or the early bird?
and
rate?
I believe the early bird rate is cheaper for next year. And correct me if I'm wrong. Than it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was kind
The
of
early bird is
for
cheaper
next
than
year.
last year's early bird.
No.
The regular.
Okay, that's
The
what I
right-
thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
The regular rate.
The regular, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe staff used that because they knew of these concerns in mind when they came up with this. So that's my only thing. So I agree with you. I think that whatever that dollar amount is, if it can be researched before the time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent Armour, didn't we provide that number with one of the questions prior on?
And I apologize. I apologize if I didn't read it.
I
So.
don't have that in front of me, but I think we did provide that.
Is it probably true that every year the early bird rate is cheaper than the regular rate was the year before? It seems like that would be the case almost.
I mean, I feel like
I-
that's.
Yeah.
probably-
Yeah,
I swear
yeah.
the early bird rate next year is cheaper than the early bird rate from last year. It isn't? All right, then I missed it.
No.
Then I misunderstood.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
I know-
mean,
I know
if
they-
it was, that would definitely be
Well,
something
yeah.
that I would consider a decent compromise.
I think a compromise is to me, I was very excited about a Twilight Pass.
Sure.
Because you still get access, and we may make money off of that. I think if I remember correctly, the net positive on the pool was like 44,000, and that's going to help our Wildwood and our senior center and other programs that are not projected to make a positive. So, I want to be affordable, but we also have a budget, and we have to figure out where we're going to take that money from.
To correct, I believe that the pool was netting about 100, and then the Wildwood was losing about 100. So looking at Wildwood and the pool together, it was an offset. One was losing 100, one was making about 100. So there was the offset for the two. So if I remember correctly, they're both around 100K.
The only thing I'd say is that if there's enough of us who agree to some sort of fee decrease, I am willing to go through the budget again
To look
and look for something that could be used to partially offset. Whether Twilight Pass, I don't think is going to generate enough revenue to offset this. So you take a small amount of that and look at something else, and whether it's fees. I mean, I don't want to jack anyone else's fees up, but maybe there's an opportunity for something that wasn't above the CPI that could be above, that hits 7%, that helps to cover this. And if enough of us are passionate about it, I'm willing to have the discussion. I just in the current setup with the current budget, I just don't see, with everything staff's done and what they're asking for, I don't see where we're going to find that. At least not going into next year.
I'm totally sympathetic to what you guys are talking about. You know, we were a family at one point where we had to make that decision whether or not we, got the pool pass. And our girls were getting older, and we ultimately opted out of doing the pool pass, and partly, because of the cost and how much they were going to use it. So I completely see, where that's coming from. I do think that this year is unique in that, we don't have revenue coming in from other places like Oakton, and, that this would certainly, once we were back at full strength with locations, that, then we should really be making a concerted effort to try to come up with some other way to, keep pool passes at instead of such an increase, try to offset that somehow else, maybe in the coming year, but not at this point. So, I think we just need to think about where the budget looks right now. And but I completely sympathize with your points.
Well, like, once again, like I'm not saying, I'm cognizant of the fact that it needs to be raised, but I'm saying 7% is too much, and I'm not going to budge off that. That is something, like I said, and that's when I thought about, taking the increase for the CPI. I mean, that's one of the things I was thinking, like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, and, as a board member, if I'm going to say, like, cool, I'm in favor of that, well, I do want to see families see some sort of benefit, especially because, like, I'm a lot less, there's some of us on the board that are a lot less far removed from having little ones, and we are more cognizant of just how expensive so many of these activities are. And I mean, my kids are about 4 years apart, and I've seen like a pretty big jump in prices between when, my son went through some of these things to when my daughter went through some of these things. And at some point, I see my responsibility as a commissioner as like standing up for the families and saying, like, look, this is something we could do that was beneficial to the community. And I mean, especially when you look at, how many years have we ended up with like a surplus that we then transferred to capital? Like, we've had a pretty good run. So I don't think this is an unreasonable ask. And even if you wanted to maybe make a little more of an increase for non-residents and a little less of a one, like maybe 5 for non, 3 for residents, like, fine. I'm cool with that. But 7% across the board for pools when we're raising fees on so many other areas, and I think about the crunches that families with young children are facing, no, it's not acceptable.
I think when I was collecting signatures, I had people, even like more measured folks, saying like, we had the Oakton referendum, we had the 207 referendum, now we have the D64 referendum, and then, we've taken the CPI this year. And even people who don't normally gripe about tax increases are feeling like they're at their limit. So this is a small thing I thought we could do to let people know we're hearing them. And it's a small thing. But I agree, Commissioner Matza, I appreciate you being serious in your treasurer role and bringing that up. And we'd have to go back and see. I would appreciate to know what the impact was, say if we raised it by 3% instead of 7%, how much that would be and what the mass balance would be in terms of what we're taking out. That makes sense.
It's about a $23,000 difference.
Cool.
Just for clarity, so the 7% is 23. It's estimated, obviously, but we would. Okay, so there's a $23,000 gap. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Don't think you have the votes. I'm sorry. I think it's the wrong year. Next year is going to be different for many reasons. We do not have the minimum wage increase, and we have Oakton going. But we're already running a deficit budget, so I can't say you can have it because we think you should have it. So I don't disagree.
I would just make one comment. Now that, thank you for the number, Superintendent Armour. I'm willing to go through the budget again, and I know we have until the 5th to actually pass it. Is that correct?
Passing the budget's not to the 19th.
The 19th.
Yeah.
It's tax levy.
The tax levy. Okay, I apologize. So the 19th. I mean, if it's a $23,000 gap and it's serious, right? Even without consensus, I know John's not here tonight.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to go through and at least have an alternative, and then with the alternative, if there's not consensus, then the will of the board, right? So, if maybe we'll have a discussion later, or between this and the next meeting, where we can have one more look at the budget, if we're serious about having this offset. Right. Like I said, I know Cindy mentioned there's not enough here tonight, but we are short one.
I haven't had a conversation with John about it, Commissioner.
Well, I know in previous meeting he had mentioned specifically something about the park or the pools. He was the one who
I talked
asked
to
for.
John. I talked to John. Yeah, he was okay with the way it is.
Okay.
Not to
But-
say he couldn't change his mind, but.
I didn't mean to put words in his mouth. So.
No, I mean, when you say the referendum, people voted for the referendum. So they
Sure.
didn't vote for the referendum for us to give them a discount. That was a choice that the citizens made. And some of us were against that.
Yeah.
So, and that was a big nut, a very big nut, much bigger than pool passes. So I think that's a different, that is a different subject, in my opinion.
I respectfully disagree because what I'm saying is when the community has been supportive of us, I think giving them a little something back, and this isn't even like refunding them money. This is just saying we're not going to jack it up by 7%. Like finding a middle ground. Like
I
even if
wouldn't
it
get
was-
anything back. I wouldn't get a cent back. So
No, but nobody's getting anything back. It's just not going to be raised as high. And that we're saying to the community, we hear your concerns. We understand that it's a tough financial time for a lot of families. And when families have children, like there's so many expenses coming at them that I think saying, we hear you, we understand, and therefore we're not going to make as large of an increase in the cost of the pool pass is something we could say to make the community feel like we actually care.
I do care. And I do think that giving a new pass for the evening is great. It's a win-win for everyone. And people can buy it early bird. So there are options. I do
Well,
care. And don't tell me I don't care, because I do.
That's not actually what I said, but this Twilight Pass, when you're talking about families with small children, they're probably not the group that's going to use that. I'm looking out for families with small children because I think that, there's subsidization for other areas, and I think this is one where, like I said, I've never said we shouldn't do any increase, but I'm saying I'm not finding that a 7% acceptable, and I'm willing to compromise on the number, but I'm not okay with 7.
I hear you loud and clear. We need to find 4 people that want to do that. So are there other areas of concern or feedback?
I wish Commissioner Tunnel was here tonight, so we would.
I did
Could
talk
make
to
it.
him. You can
Okay.
talk to him. And then what would have to happen? I mean, what,
Today, we were just looking for a consensus moving forward, as it seems to be 3 and 3 is a split board. We could go ahead and look at some research, looking at, different ways to look at the pool passes, but as of right now, we're just looking for consensus. And, depending on this, looking at our board meeting schedule with December 5th and December 19th, our goal was try to have an approved budget by the end of the year. We could start looking at it. I can make phone calls, or President Grau, we could talk to John Tunnel as well offline and kind of regroup. But right now, it seems I don't know, $23,000 for the pool pass seems to be the issue. In regards to, let's just put that a pin in there for real quick, but in regards to positions, how do we feel with the proposed staffing structure that we're proposing for the board, for the fiscal year 25 budget? Are we good there? With the capital projects that were proposed, we have consensus with that. Just trying to narrow it down. If it's one object, we could have some internal discussions, knowing that next week's a holiday and people are out of the office. We might not have any answers anytime in the near future, but we could try to get things going, have discussions, looking at different lights. But right now it's a split. There seems 3 and 3. Commissioner Bendy, I didn't have a response for you, so I'm sorry to include you one way or the other. But out of it just seems like a split currently where we stand today.
Sure, it's a lot of money. It's what, $4 a person, basically? Is that what you told us a while ago?
For a family pass of 4, it was a $16 increase,
yeah.
so $4 per person.
Yeah, so I mean, it's tough, but minimum wage is up, and the early bird special is a great thing. And I know Margaret will do a great job on getting the word out. So, if people are on top of it, they'll do the early bird. And, maybe next year, I'm sure it'll be less. But I think if this is what staff recommended, and to make the numbers work and make it, it is a profit center, okay, and the seniors and the Wildwood are not, so somehow there has to be an offset. But I for me, I think the 7% is, acceptable, justified. Thank you.
The only thing I was going to say is that I appreciate the hard choices staff had to make with capital and everything this year. And I'm okay with the budget as is, but just to make the caveat that there's still time to change someone's mind. We haven't finalized it yet.
Correct.
Yep. I'm good with the budget the way it is currently.
I will be on business travel for the December 5th meeting, so I will back down. I'm just at least making a point for next year. I do think we need to be aware, and maybe I get it more than other folks on the board do, but people do tell me they feel like they're not getting enough for their dollars. And I know it's partly an impression, and I always have to clarify how much of the levy goes to the school district versus us. Like we're almost the same as like the Cook County Forest Preserves, and that's always a good comparison to make to people. So I know it's not necessarily like deserved, but I do want the board and staff to know that people do. I mean, this is an American feeling right now that people feel stretched. So
It is.
yeah.
And I would really hope that next year, because of the situation we're going to be in, we're not going to be having this discussion.
Yes, I would agree with that. So I will back down, even though I don't feel like I was jumping up. But I think I really I don't want like this point to take away from the job that folks have done on the budget, because it was really fantastic. So, and I know we're balancing a lot of things, including Oakton.
I appreciate all the comments and the feedback tonight. Again, I will reiterate to Commissioner Halting that the staff did do a great job with the budget this year. We did have several cuts throughout the time. We had to make some tough decisions, as Commissioner Matza alluded to as well. But I am really pleased with how the process was and what staff did. We'll talk offline with staff looking at aquatics in the future for that as we move forward. But I do want to give another shout out to the staff for all their hard work and dedication to this year's budget process.
Yeah, I think it was a particularly tough one. And that's, it's unusual. So usually we're pretty flush. Our capital is like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing. I just think that you have to make hard decisions. And I hope next year we do not have to have this discussion. So anything else? Anybody else?
No.
Great. All right, moving on to marketing and public relations.
Hi. My board report is on page 19. I'm just going to highlight a few things. The winter brochure is going to be released on Monday, December 2nd, so just after Thanksgiving. Resident registration opens on Monday, December 9th, the following week. marketing staff worked with Wildwood staff to design a new logo for the Nature Preschool. This is coordinating now with our new Wildwood logo that we designed about a year ago. The Park Ridge Friends of the Parks Trivia Night fundraiser was held on November 2nd. We had 88 players, and we raised just over $5,300. This is compared to $3,900 last November. So very successful year. And then I just wanted to point out that I'm now representing the district on the Kiwanis Club of Park Ridge.
I was like, how many places to
I like being placed. And their mission is to service and focused on children, so we think it's a good connection with the park district.
That's the early morning one, right?
I know. I get up early now.
Thank you for what you do.
You're welcome.
You do a lot.
Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
I have a question from your report.
Okay.
The October customer comments were greatly increased over
We've
last
been
year. Was
seeing
there a
this.
certain thing?
No, we've been seeing this all year since we launched the new website.
Okay.
It's just where the comment form is on the site. We are just getting a lot more. We've seen it kind of double or triple
Oh,
almost
okay.
every month since we launched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the context.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's good in a way.
Yeah.
Is it good? It's not
Pros
robots.
and cons. Pros and cons.
Not robots. And it's not bad. They're just inquiries. They're
Yeah.
just questions, availability about things or that. It's just questions. So I think it is a good thing that they're able to find how to ask us those
Yes,
questions.
that is
So
good.
that's good. Yeah.
That's great. All right, Human Resources Director Riker.
Good evening. A few items from my report. On November 6th, we had a very exciting safety training day. Manager Myers and the safety committee did an amazing job. It was a Power Up for Safety superhero theme, so that was a lot of fun. They did a great job with different stations and just making it more fun and lively for staff while really receiving a great training. And then we topped that off with some open enrollment, which was super fun too. I know staff really enjoyed it. So we met and shared all of their options for 2025, and they've been able to elect or decline their choices since then, and it ends tomorrow. And then once that closes after tomorrow, HR and payroll will work to prepare for the new year and get everything ready for that first payroll in the new year. Supervisors have been working really hard on part-time evaluations. That's concluding, so they've done a great job with that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for the board.
Does that help firm up your budget numbers for benefits then? Having that close this week, do you get a closer? We over budget for benefit figures, right?
Well, yes, we'll have a better idea of who's electing what. Typically, it doesn't change too much from year to year,
Mhm.
a change or two. But again, it will also depend on positions, future positions,
Right.
and who chooses what
Right.
with the bigger ticket items.
So there's not going to be a pot of $23,000 there.
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
If you find one,
But if we find
if
it
you
out,
find
I'll let you
one, let us
know.
let us know.
Rethinking all. Anything else I can help answer? Okay, thank you.
Finance.
Okay, I will turn it over to Superintendent Larson.
Hello. My report starts on page 23. I just have a few little things to mention. I was going to mention that we already know this, but our next step in the budget process is the tax levy ordinance. So I've prepared a draft of that for the board to review at our next meeting, and if it is approved, then I will file it with the county. It needs to be legally filed with the county by the last Tuesday in December, and I like to get it in nice and early, so just in case something goes awry. So if that's approved, I'll probably file it with the county the day after the meeting on the 6th. The other thing I wanted to mention for my report in the did you have a question, Commissioner Grau?
No.
Oh, okay. The other thing I wanted to mention in my report regarding investments is our next maturity is scheduled for November 30th. It's about $7.3 million. However, that's a Saturday, so it actually will not hit in November. It will actually be in December. So I just wanted to mention that. So it will mature on Monday, December 2nd. And then for IT, we do have a surplus property request. It's included with the request in Terry's area, and that is for the very ancient and very, very sad human resources copier that we are very happy is going bye-bye.
Vintage.
Yeah, the vintage. There you go. Any questions?
Overall, over everything?
Over anything you want to ask.
So I'm looking at the pretty color graphs again. The yellow is it really FY24 budget or is it FY24 year to date?
Well, my computer is frozen. Hold on.
It says budget, but I'm like, I think it's like, it's year to date, isn't it?
No, it's, well, yes, so all of the charts are year-to-date comparison. So it's the year-to-date budget.
But if I look at like fund balance, the fund balance of each year is at that time. But the yellow one says it's all government funds, fiscal year 24 budget instead of actual.
Right, it is the budget. Like where the November is.
Should be.
It's not actual.
It is actual.
No, it's budget.
It's budget.
All right.
So
Okay, so
let's
it's
see.
not, I'm reading this wrong then. It's not an actual report.
No, it is an actual report. The actuals are the other colors.
Yeah. So the light
So
green, the light
Oh,
light
the
green
dark
is
green.
FY24
Ah,
actual.
I read it right last month, and this month I'm looking at it like, what the hell? Did it change? I missed the light green.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No.
I knew it under last month. All right, I get it.
Yeah, so it's actuals
Yes.
in the.
Yes. So now it makes
year-to-date.
yes.
So this is only through October.
All right, I understand.
Thanks for the question.
On the same graph, I thought about something. So we approved the budget. When would we actually see like 2022 roll off? Like, were you planning on doing that like the first meeting into January? Like where like all the color bars, like everything's gonna shift, right? So you'll have you'll have 2025 at the bottom, and then you'll have the ridiculous one for the okay.
Yeah.
Is it-
I mean, that's what I would do as the first.
Okay. We did. I know we had expanded it a little bit to give clarity on pre referendum and
Right,
whatever.
right.
Was there any plan for finance to expand, like to keep that pre, or are we just going to let that roll off?
We can do whatever you want.
I don't want to make the report ridiculous. That's why I was asking.
No, I mean, I don't think it would be, I mean, I can do it.
Or just
Show
do 2
you guys
years.
at the first meeting, like do
Yeah.
22, 23, 24, and 25.
Yeah.
You can decide if that's useful, more confusing.
Or 2 years, just 2 years.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. I think
Or-
maybe just once.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see like how it all stacks in.
Yeah.
Like, and then if it's enough, then maybe.
The only thing to remember with those early reports is we won't have closed the year yet. So there's still going to be some swings as we go through.
Yeah,
the
that's why I was wondering if we wait till February or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously before the tax, the first round of next year's taxes
Mhm.
kick in. But I think it would be nice to see it before it rolls off.
Yeah.
That's all I was asking.
Yep, that makes sense. I'll make a note of that for sure.
And then I had one other question. The ancient copier and human resources. You said the hard drives are wiped and it's being sent to what's the recycle? Is it the same that red?
Digital red.
Digital red.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
They're giving you the certificate that
Yes,
says they did.
exactly.
Because I know human resource ends up with some HIPAA stuff, and some of that flash memory still holds it even afterwards. So do you know if they're wiping it or destroying?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can ask specifically, but I know what they do with other things, which is like stomp on it and hammer it.
Yeah. They usually they can hole punch it.
Yeah.
They can degauss it. I
Yes.
mean, there's
I think they enjoy that.
there's multiple ways of ruining. No, I'm serious. Like people will take these things and they're
Is it
White-
like a scene in Office
Allison,
Space?
Yeah.
Allison has something to
No,
say, I think.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that most of the more HIPAA-related items
Okay, no, it's good to know because it does come up. I did work with an insurance agency, and they were like, "Well, you can't just wipe them." And then we're like, "Well, we do Department of Defense protocol," and they're like, "Nope." They're like, "You gotta destroy it, like no longer usable bits and pieces." And we were like, "Okay." It's like as long as you're gonna pay for it. So that's why I was asking. And if you're saying it's the big copier doesn't really have that stuff, then okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Eileen though, just to make
Yeah, well,
sure. I do know that they.
I just know with some of the HIPAA stuff, it's
Yeah.
really specific. So, all right, thank you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So you pointed out in the report that the Beyond the Bell revenue is $188,000 higher than prior year and 106 higher than budgeted. And I realize that on the expenses, you have more kids, you need more staff, and it balances out. But is that unusual? I don't know that it's 100K higher than budgeted.
Well, we made more space, so remember,
That's
it's all
right.
about the space.
At Roosevelt, right? Especially
All-
at all of them.
All locations.
Okay.
That's
like a duo
that's
now.
based on
Yes.
participation.
Okay.
Definitely. So I would say it's unusual because we've added more space and
Okay.
been able to accommodate more students.
And you didn't know that last year, like when you budgeted for Beyond the Bell. So the budget was based on older numbers.
We usually base the budget on the participants at the time or the
Okay.
maximums that we have. If we're, if at the time we
Okay.
are a little short-staffed, a couple years ago we were short-staffed, we ended up budgeting based on the maximum capacity at each location.
Okay.
So now that we have more space, next year's 2025 budget is based on current capacities.
I didn't remember that being.
It is a
big of
lot.
jump.
No, I noticed.
Yeah.
That's a big number. Yeah.
Yeah, that pops out every time, I do my analysis is Beyond the Bell, really pops out.
We just have to hope those renovations go well.
That they don't spill over. That's what you're saying.
Well, we just really depend on the schools, so
Yeah. that
hopefully
we
they have their
enough
act
space
together.
At the beginning of the year and it's not torn up. Okay. Thank
And
you.
I always like to highlight one smaller program too, which is dance, which is almost $19,000 higher than budgeted and $5,500 higher than the private year. Or the prior year. So I always like to find like I can see the big swings easily, but I also like to dig a little bit more and find the things that are still success stories, just smaller dollar amounts. But I think that's really great for the dance program. And I know Matt's doing an amazing job and he keeps building things. So it's really exciting. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Comments? Okay. All right. I move to approve the payment of expenditures in the total amount of $4,446,226.66.
Second.
Thank you. Comments or questions? No? Okay. Let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Aye.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, oh. All right, you're going to talk about the approval of the Fifth Third Bank commercial card member rebate amendment. Back to Superintendent Larson.
Why don't you make the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay, I move to approve amendments to the Fifth Third Bank commercial card member rebate program and to authorize the president to execute and deliver such agreement.
Second.
Thank you. All right, discussion.
Okay, as I mentioned in my memo on page 39, this is just an updated agreement for our purchasing card rebate program, and the only thing it's really doing is sort of devising another bucket where our spending will go so we can earn on that. It was really driven by the processing companies. So they're kind of fine tuning their buckets and then letting the banks know, and then the banks change the amendment. I compared this to our original agreements, very, very similar. I mean, really the only thing that changes is this other, the EDR bucket.
Do you anticipate we have a lot of spending in that bucket?
Well, it's anything less than 10,000 that incorporates level 3 data, and I'm not exactly sure what level 3 data is. I tried many times to ask. It the data levels are determined by the information coming into the bank, like how much detail there is, and I can't really get a clear idea on what's the differences are between level 1, level 2, and level 3. But it'll be interesting at the end of the year when we get our report, I can see.
When does it start?
We need to have this signed at the end of December, and then it'll start in the new year in 2025.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Halting,
Aye.
Commissioner Graf.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, let's turn it over to Commissioner Leduc for Recreation.
And I will turn it over to Superintendent Armour.
Thank you. Well, there were a lot of events, many festive things going on in the past month, from the trunk or treat to the parades, the hayride, the pumpkin smashes, a haunted house trip, a party with the animals, a skeleton egg dip at the pool, and a star Halloween event. So for all ages and animals too, something for everybody. A few programs I wanted to specifically point out on page 49, the jump and the early childhood classes. So,
I saw that.
new options.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. And another shout out to Matt. He's really trying hard to get some of the teen programs up and running so that I don't think it's ever going to be the way it used to be years ago, when the kids were really willing to participate in Park District programs, but he's trying. So we had 2 teen trips run and the teen pool night as well. So that was great. And you may have noticed we did separate out our athletic participation, some to show the board and also for our tracking purposes. We separated out the court and field sports because that's how we're going to shift things moving forward in 2025 and when Oakton opens. That we're going to separate things in that fashion. And also we, have been trying to track the gymnastics program with that shift in our contractor. So the 2024 numbers is the new contractor, Hot Shots, in previous years was our previous contractor. So that's obviously been a really great shift, and they're offering a lot more, and they're running. So
Is that all in the basement at South Park? The gymnastics?
Yeah, I think they all are. Yeah, they have. Well, there might be some upstairs too, a few, but most of them are in the gymnastics studio. But at South Park, yes. Youth basketball has started, so that's always very exciting. All the tryouts, and we've seen growth in participation again. The older age groups were still trying out at the time the report was put together. So you'll see next month all of the older age groups and that participation as well. So very busy time in the athletics department. And the Nature Center programs, wow, it's just really hard not to point them out every month because it's really impressive what they're doing over there with the new space. The bazaar at the Activity Center was another success. I don't know if anyone had a chance to stop by, but when I was there, it was very busy, and the vendors were all very pleased with the turnout. So it was very successful. And this report also includes the end of season summaries for both camps and pools. Both areas have had very successful seasons. I know I've been giving a lot of updates along the way. We always have some, bumps along the way and areas to improve upon, but so many success stories and happy campers and patrons throughout the very busy season. A lot of information in here. I wasn't going to go into great detail, but I'd be happy to answer or try and answer any questions or get back to you if there's something really specific that I can't.
No, I just noticed during the camps that when you compare it to the previous years, the percentage of net is down. And I'm guessing because expenses were up.
Yeah,
obviously.
and that's when we went through the budget presentation. That was, we started out with camps at the 3.4% increase. And we're like, these percentages are, the expenses, some of the things that Julie talked about are just going up so astronomically on top of the wage increases. We're like,
This is the result,
Yeah.
is what it is.
so our first round was at the 3.4% for camps and BTB. And we're like, it's not, and pools. Like, it's not going to work.
I really appreciate the camp results. Been bugging poor Director Shea about this probably for a while. But I know Matt, right, is the teen supervisor. I know he got hired like the first week of camp. And so he didn't have time to get up to speed and maybe engage with the programming for the Teen Trailblazers camp as much as, I mean, he just got there. So I saw that the numbers were a little low for that camp, and that doesn't surprise me based on feedback from the critics who live in my house, who give that to me. So I'll be excited to see what happens next year, because I know I think I met him in the hallway at Mean Park that first week of camp as I was dropping my kids off. But I was really happy to see how good the numbers were for nature camp and some of the other ones. So I really appreciate that information and some of the focus areas for next year. You mentioned the teen programs and maybe, and I know reasons why, because I have middle school kids, but back in the day, what were the popular things that teens would go to when attendance was better? I'm just curious.
A lot of the trips.
The
and
trips.
teen nights and,
Like at the pool or.
Yeah. A lot of the same things we're trying, but
Okay.
plugging in some, newer activities and trips and more up-to-date classes. But I think
Paintball.
I took a trip with the teens to paintball.
My kid loves.
And I lost the van
So he
keys.
comes
That was
back
fun.
with bruises. He's got a padded shirt. Okay, so it was.
Yeah, it's really just hard in the, this technology era and trying to get kids to actually leave their houses or not just hang out in the parks.
I know.
Even though we love for them to hang out in the parks during the day, Yeah, it's very challenging. So,
Yeah.
since the advances in technology, we've definitely seen that drop, unfortunately. As long as there's an audience, we're going to continue to try.
And I do know that parents appreciate having a camp available for kids that are in that weird middle school age before they can get a job. Because, I know people. I know that is my first camp counselor gig was with 12 and 13-year-olds, and I know it was 1,000 years ago, but I remember.
But you'll always remember.
I'll always remember. I was hired late. That was like the last spot left. Okay, one more question. Cindy's comment about the early childhood numbers and I feel like I've asked this question before, but is there a reason why we don't have a lot of early childhood classes with adult on, like, at a time when working parents can go? I think I looked at the fall schedule. It was either the summer schedule or the fall schedule, and there was so little, like on Saturday mornings or at a time where people who work can take their kids. I remember that for me, like they had like the parent taught sport class on Saturday morning, and that being one I could go to. And I feel like I asked you this before and you gave me a good answer. So.
We do still have some of the sports classes that are in the athletic section.
Okay.
We try and offer them, and we do hear that feedback from parents. And
Yeah.
we try and get the parents' names, and can you get a group of people,
Yeah.
and we'll offer a class, and then not enough people
No,
sign
okay.
up. So that's kind of a repeat occurrence that
Sure.
we've heard and tried and heard and tried again, and try and keep that
The
option
demand just
open.
never materializes.
No, unfortunately.
Because the Jiggle Jammers, is that what it's called? The music ones. I think those are all during the day too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
yeah, and we're certainly open to trying. You know, we've tried a lot of different things and heard from parents, and we're like, yes, what would you like? What time? And we try it out, and we're like, please rally some parents. Love to see this go, and it just most often does not. The athletic ones are the ones that most often are
I did enjoy that class, I must say.
the ones that we run.
Okay. I think that's it. Those are my a lot of recreation questions this week.
Great.
Yeah, I'm good.
Like to express my gratitude to your managers, your camp managers, who, you know, have done looks like a great job. And, you know, it's like probably like herding cats to keep the young staffers, you know, organized and on task, and the parents happy. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Pass that along.
I saw the private swim number jumped out too. That was a big one.
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
Yeah, we have a lot of options, and you know, at one point we had semi-private, and that was not as popular.
Right.
But, you know, it's just a really popular option, and we are much less expensive than the private
Yeah.
sector and the
Yeah.
individual and the group lessons.
No, I put my younger kid in private lessons after COVID because he like almost learned to swim. We spent like a mint at the private swim schools. I felt like I was setting money on fire. And then COVID happened and he didn't swim for 2 years. And then I put him in private and he had a ton of progress. So I think there's definitely a market to be had there with people who've sent their kids to the private swim schools and spent a ton of money and they're still I've heard that from people. Like, I've spent all this money and my kids still can't
Yep.
swim.
That's a common question on the Facebook forums, I think, the swimming.
Oh,
What
yeah.
you think?
Where should
Yeah.
I go for
Yeah.
swimming?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was not surprised to see that big number. There is a demand there for sure.
Yeah, and that's when sometimes you'll see a dip. It's, you know, I think I've mentioned once or twice recently that we had a whole slew of high schoolers quit, and then that's when that number dips down a little bit.
Yeah.
because
Oh, man.
People have their really specific time, and if that's a staff person that quits that's really busy during that time, it's like, oh, we got to hire somebody quick to fill that.
Well, and the staff gets a
slot.
following too, right? There's certain staff members they all like too. So
Definitely.
especially. And I also noticed the check-in process at the pools, right? Was that those rates went up really high, like over 10%. That was probably the handheld people noticed. Yeah.
We did, but we were surprised. We still got a lot of comments about
Check-in?
yeah. And we're like, wait, it doesn't tie, because there were a lot of specific comments about the check-in process being difficult, but then the rating bumped up. So we're like, okay, we're just that's gonna still be on our list to try and improve and do what we can.
And we had them the whole time, the whole season. Well, your data is conflicting, but it's nice to see the uptick.
Yeah, we were.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I won't bring it up. Never mind.
Actually, I was curious. So, looking ahead to the upcoming lessons, have some of the teachers who left been replaced yet? Good.
It just takes a little time to hire and train and make sure they're most often brand new to instructing, so it takes a bit of time. So if it's more than one, then sometimes it's definitely shows in the numbers.
Any progress on that 15-year-old employers employing them? No, nothing on that. Okay.
Any other comments before we move on to the motion? All right. I move to approve Empire Printing of Springfield, Missouri as the lowest responsible bidder for the 2025 T-shirt and apparel bid in the amount of $36,017.98, and to authorize the president to execute and deliver such agreement.
Second.
Any comments or discussion?
This year we had 2 bidders, and we've worked with this vendor before and really had minimal issues, so we're pleased with this vendor.
Very wide price difference.
Yeah, yeah, it was surprising.
Well,
And-
it would have
and
been
we-
nice to be able to go local, but with that kind of price difference,
Yeah, and we do generally see that even when there's
Yeah.
it's range from
Yes.
2 to 8 or 9 vendors that we've gotten, and there's always a big spread. But this is just having 2 of them. It looks pretty.
Yep, pretty noticeable.
any other comments? Mary Beth, if you could please call the roll.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
All right, well, that passes. And now moving on to Buildings and Grounds and Commissioner Bowe.
And I'll turn it over to Superintendent.
Thank you. My report does begin on page 66. I was tired of the old format, so I changed it and added some things this month. One of the things that I've noticed and I've started a conversation with, and we're going to probably continue to tweak just a little bit, is how my report and some of the projects reporting interacts with and coordinates with the marketing department. So just the timing of the information that I'm putting in the board report is similar to what timing she's putting posts out. And it's just, it's a continuum, right? Like by the time I write my report and it gets reviewed and processed and delivered to you guys and we have our meeting, that a lot of stuff has changed in the capital world. So we'll continue to have things there, but I'm going to work a little more closely, I think, with the marketing department and be more conscious of that relationship that we need to have. So with that, I've always been wanting to have a chart. So I've put that towards the end of the report that shows all of the different capital projects that we have going on and where they're at. You will see something like this for the whole new list of projects starting with January 1 next year, the first report of January. So we'll have this to kind of look at. It won't have all these X's in it because it'll just be a project with no progress yet, but then we'll have something to look at and think about. So I just wanted to, talk through that briefly. Beyond that, and things that were not in the report, is that we actually have put out to bid as of today 2 bids for Oakton, one for the netting and poles and one for the roofing phase 2. So that's out on the street as of this afternoon. Those will be opened on December 17th at 1 o'clock in this boardroom if you're interested in joining us for that opening. Otherwise, we'll of course have those results shared with you shortly after that. So
What was the date? I'm sorry, 17th?
December 17th. Yep. I believe it's a Tuesday.
Long-awaited polls.
Yep. So, in addition, we have actually been working with, or Lauren has been working with us, our sustainability coordinator. We have submitted a grant for, as a forestry grant application, where we will be removing all of the buckthorn invasive species over at Main Park, and including a planting of trees at that park. And just because of the way that the grant application worked out and the way that the funding worked out, and working with her and Jennifer Meunier and Patrick, we were able to identify that the grant had a better chance if we put in more trees, and it didn't have to be just at Main Park. So we reflected back on our master tree planting plan that we developed a number of years ago with some arborists, and we've decided to add the planting of 32 trees to that grant. So that would complete our master planting plan at 7 of our smaller parks. So we're pretty excited about that. Be a little while before we know about it, but it was a lot of work and collaboration. And there was a part in there where we got to collaborate or identify another park district that you were talking about or suggesting. And it just so happened my counterpart from DeKalb, who I know, reached out to me. So we signed each other's as it was. So anyway, weird how those things work out. But so we're anxious to hear back on that.
How much is that worth, do you think?
It'll be around $20,000 for us and about $20,000 out of our pocket. So the way we looked at this was we had money available in our budget for tree trimming normally. Like we're doing this whole thing out of operating costs and just shifting. So then the cost that we have for the tree plantings, because they're picking up 50% and because they're doing the installation, the cost is almost a wash for what we do. And so instead of us planting those 32 trees that we have a goal of planting at least 40 or more, it just might be shifting the majority of them over there and saving ourselves some effort and only having 8 to do, or maybe we'll find a space to do some more if we've got the budget. So we'll have to see where that lays.
I didn't
depending
even
on how
think
this
about
falls
them
out, so-
planting the trees. I thought you would plant them, but
No, this includes them, a contractor planting them. So,
wow.
yeah.
This is a grant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who's the funder?
I know Morton Arboretum's involved, but I don't know that they're the funder. I'd have to look back and get you the answer specifically. So, so that's my report. Unless anybody has any specific questions about anything that's written in there, I would be happy to talk through or answer those.
I had a question. I was, sad to see the return of vandalism. Did any of our cameras capture either the graffiti or the Brickton porta potty fire?
No, unfortunately not. We don't have cameras in all of our park locations at every location. The one at Woodland didn't get quite a good angle on it, so we're looking into alternative angles to add out there as well, just to help keep an eye on our facilities, which is where our cameras are primarily located at. So,
In the Brickton, there just wasn't anything.
And the graffiti wasn't related to the red graffiti in the past. Nope.
I would tell you that it was the same colored spray paint, and there was a few letters that were placed in the one corner that were the same as I'd seen on previous graffiti. So, not knowing for sure, but it looked very similar to what it was. It just was a different message.
Damn.
So,
They changed their story. Huh.
The problem with security cameras is they're never in the right place. You can put in thousands of cameras, but they're never going to capture every event. So
it's also it's a post-issue thing too. And then, yeah,
mhm.
you'll catch what happened, not stop what happens.
Yeah,
So.
right. Yep.
So, we winterize all of our restrooms, and does that include the one at the pool or at the activity center? Yeah.
That one's probably just closed.
It's just closed. So yeah, because is that our only, and South Park is in a building too. Are those the only restrooms that are in an actual building? But those are both closed in the winter, even though they're not winterized. Well, so yeah, I was just wondering why we close them if we don't need to winterize them.
Because we don't have like sports or athletics going on, and so the need and the use is so much lower, but the potential for damage or vandalism is high at that time, just because it would be open. So I've never once had a single person request that those be open. Like, why are those not open? So, yeah.
But that might be different at Hinckley, right? I mean, not Hinckley, South Park, when you put those in at South Park because of the skating, or no?
Yeah, those won't be something that we can keep open though year round. But when we do, we still have the basement open, and that has
Oh,
resources
yeah.
available.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
warming
right.
Shelter at South
Yeah.
Park anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So they have the ability. Years ago, we used to have an area at Centennial at the activity center that we opened as a warming shelter for the sled hill. And at that point, there would be restrooms available, but something we could look into.
That's the only time I've wondered about it is when I take kids sledding and there are people there with younger kids and there's no restroom. And I guess if the activity center is open, you could haul your kid around and go there, but.
Yeah. The way we have it set up now is our outdoor restrooms, even when they are open, they still all close at basically this time that the park closes. So they'd close at dusk, which, we would have to be pretty conscious about our And the software we have to lock those right now is, it's a program you have to go and plug it in. It's not like it's hooked into a system where we could just say, oh, sled hill's open. Yeah, so it's a little more challenging, but it's something we could consider or look into.
I just remember going sledding at one of the hills in Northbrook, and there was like an open bathroom, and I was like, "Oh, an open bathroom! This is so." Yeah, for the sledding hill, it might be something to consider.
Sure, we'll look into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been there. Looking for the bathroom with my daughters, and it's like, okay, where can we go? So,
Not as many trees up on top of that hill anymore. I'm just saying.
Well, there's
Yeah.
too many clothes to take off.
Getting out of his snow pants.
Yeah.
all right, moving on to the ordinance. I move to approve ordinance number 24-7, an ordinance authorizing the sale of used personal property owned by the Park Ridge Park District.
Second.
Any more discussion?
So this covers 2 vehicles that we just recently got vehicles to replace. So we're just clearing them out. We're really, really tight for space. So we're anxious to get these put on the auction and block and out because of our lack of space at Oakton and things that we already have in our yard. So it's going to make for a very difficult winter. So since we just got those new vehicles that these are replacing, we want to get them out. So, and then Karen talked about the copier that's on here as well. So, but these are the vehicles that were planned for and identified when we went into the budgeting for the vehicles that we bought. So.
Roll call?
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Matza.
Thank you very much. There's no policy report tonight, but I did want to let the board know about a future policy that would be coming up after the holidays. After speaking with President Grau and the Executive Director Shea, we feel now that nomination petitions are over and the majority of this current board will be returning for another term. This might be an ideal time to do a comprehensive review of the commissioner bylaws. State law gives the board an outline of how our park board's responsibilities, but leaves us a lot of latitude about how we go about executing those responsibilities. During our interview process earlier this year in the search for a new executive director, the board was given an opportunity to review how several parks operate, how they are set up, how they manage their meetings. We believe now is a great time to do a best practice review, looking inward at how we govern. Staff in the coming days will supply the board with the most current bylaws to review, and after the holidays, in the new year, we'll start collaborating with commissioners about the board's current setup and if there's anything we would like to change about our governance over the next few years. Thank you. That's all for policy.
And Brian has some ideas, so stay tuned. How about that? All right, intergovernmental, Commissioner Tunnell is not here, and I am not aware of anything for intergovernmental, correct? All right, is there any communications and correspondence? None? Any new business?
This is not exactly new business, but I just wondered if anybody, because I know Commissioner Halting and I were talking before the meeting and realized neither one of us is going to be at the December 5th meeting, and I just wondered if anybody else knew of a planned absence for that meeting, just looking at, potential quorum issues.
I'll be here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
All right.
We'll check with John. Thank you for the heads up. And you're on business, right? You can join us remotely.
There's I have a meeting that night, actually.
I would too.
So.
We'll check with John. Okay. Make sure. Thank you for the heads up. Okay, I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.